Where's the disconnect? How can we say everything's great with how we've been doing it? Because it's not. And if you talk to the horse owners, it's not great, right? Everything around the horses, the people are screaming it's not great. And yet there's still this wall where if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It is broke.
Right.
Clearly, if it wasn't broke, they wouldn't be going lame in their teens. It's broke. But there needs to be a lot of conversation and thought around that. You're listening to the Primarily Hooves Podcast, where we make learning accessible from the ground up. We're back. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Lauren.
And we are Primarily Hooves. And this is the Primarily Hooves Podcast. Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July.
Or I guess for you guys, it'll be the day after the 4th of July that you see this.
Yes.
I hope everybody had a lot of fun and stayed safe, didn't enjoy too many cold snacks, and didn't get pulled over. And that your horses all survived the festivities well.
Yes, we have a fun story about 4th of July festivities at our farm.
Yes, our horses are all firework broke because we had a neighbor, I don't know, what was he, maybe 3/4 of a mile away as the crow flies, who would put on these huge firework displays every night, and you could see it right over the arena. And as far away as it was, if they were little fireworks, you really wouldn't notice, but they weren't the little fireworks.
They were the professional ones.
The big ones, loud enough and close enough to scare the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was really weird about it was we don't know why they did it. And they did it every night for 2 years, and it would go on for about an hour. The only times they didn't do it was if it was raining or on the 4th of July.
Or on the 4th of July.
And what was so strange about it was that this community talks, you always know what's going on, but nobody talked about this. We were the only ones to see it. And I know we weren't, because one night we were on our way here and you remember they started it and we said, we have got to find out who's doing this.
Right.
And so instead of going home, we just followed the firework trail until we got to the house where they were doing it. But neither of us were bold enough to stop and,
say, what are you doing?
Yeah, it was awesome. And the horses all got really used to fireworks.
They did. Yes.
Oh, man.
We have no problem here.
Yes. So I hope you guys had a happy 4th. And for any of our viewers who are not in the States, I hope you had a good day at work, or whatever it is you did on Friday, on the 4th of July.
Hope you had a good Friday.
Yeah. TGIF.
Mm-hmm.
The next point on the agenda before we get into it is that we've really had a pretty exciting it was 3 weeks, I think, exciting last 3 weeks, in that our Facebook has really blown up. We have gone from 2,400 followers, and we've been pretty consistent at that 2,400 number for a long time now, which is great. But in the last 3 weeks, we've gone from 2,400 to, you remember earlier, I was telling you that yesterday we were at 7,200 and earlier today we were at 7,289, which is really cool. Well, before I started filming this, I checked again and we are now at 7,316.
Wow.
Right. I waited to tell her so we could get the genuine response.
I know. It's absolutely been unreal.
Yes.
And so for any of you Facebook followers who happen to see the podcast, we want to thank you very much. Thanks for all the encouragement. Danielle does a lot of the responding, and I'm going to be doing more. We really, really appreciate all of the kind remarks that have been set forth. We have a lot of bad remarks because people do not want to change. And the belief system that horses' hooves should be trimmed like they were 100 years ago just isn't true anymore. We have too much knowledge, too much research into the functioning of the hoof. And so for people not to keep up with that is a shame. Back when I started this
in the 90s.
Yeah, in the 90s, long time ago, I was pretty much the only one in my area doing this. And many, many times I just wanted to say, I will live in my own backyard. I don't need to, do this and just help my horses. And I've had many times over the years feeling that way. But in comes Danielle, who has got this passion, and she's young and on fire for educating and helping people help their horses. And so
let's expose ourselves to the entire internet worth of criticism.
That's right. She's done an awesome job in keeping me inspired to continue on with this. And you all have done just such a wonderful job of keeping her fire lit and feeling like if you're going to be a change maker, you're going to take some criticism, and that's okay because we know what we're doing and what the science that Dr. Bowker has helped us with and exposed us to is helping horses. And so we want to help you all.
Right. Well, very, very well said. And with that came 4.1 million views in the last 28 days on the Facebook. Woo! That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. And that's crazy. A lot of you guys. That's the haters.
That's everybody.
That's everybody. But... And the thing is, I've said this online, but as far as the time humans have owned horses, the study into the inside of the horse's foot is really very new. Mm-hmm. It's not. It was started in the 1990s, but it wasn't until the 1990s that they really started looking inside. And yes, they had an idea of the structures inside the foot back in the 1800s. There are diagrams there. Apparently, all the way back to the 1500s, they have kind of structure drawn. But to really look into how the structures work, what stimulates them, what they respond to, the really minute detail of that would be the study of anatomy and physiology like we think about in the human body, right?
Sure.
That didn't start happening until the 90s. And so it's not like in the 90s, now suddenly we knew everything even, right? It's still continuing to compound and they're still making discoveries up to this point, layering information on. And so granted, people have had 30 years to catch on, and yet that's not that long of a time.
It's not.
To change something that people think, well, it is working. And yet here in the last, let's say 30 years, as horses have shifted from utilitarianism, needing them to survive, to do a job, in our community, in the 90s, they were still using horses to work fields a lot because tractors were expensive. Tractors had existed for a long time, but like our neighbors didn't get electricity until the 60s.
Just going to say that. Electricity.
Right.
Come on.
But like our area, they were poor. And so until the TVA came in and could make it affordable, right? And so we really used horses hard. And from the stories the neighbors told, you know, if they die when they're 12, that was a pretty long life, you know?
Right.
And so you could do things a certain way and not really face the repercussions of it to think we should be doing anything differently. But now that people are not using horses as hard and we're starting to keep them as family members, as pets, as you got
pleasure animals.
A field here of
pleasure,
mostly over 20-year-old, you know, useless minis that you just love, right? And you want them to live as long as possible because you just love seeing them. As we asked horses to live longer, well, now the cumulative effect of these issues are starting to pop up, right? How many human diseases did we maybe not know about because when we were dying at 35, they didn't happen? And yet now that our lifespan is up to 80, well, now some of these things are popping up. And so it's very similar. And this is where we have to start going, if horses are going lame at 15, 16, 17, but I want them to live to 30, is it because they really have to go lame at that age or are we doing something wrong? And it's that self-reflection, that thinking critically into it, that it is kind of, I don't want to say worrying that it's lacking, but that's how it feels online. That is kind of how it feels. And I don't know if that's the way to say it, but that's something I'm mulling over in my mind now, thinking about where's the disconnect? How can we say everything's great with how we've been doing it? Because it's not. And if you talk to the horse owners, it's not great, right? Everything around the horses, the people are screaming, it's not great. And yet there's still this wall where if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It is broke. It clearly, if it wasn't broke, they wouldn't be going lame in their teens. You know, it's broke. But that's something that we still have to, there needs to be a lot of conversation and thought around that because that's definitely, I don't have the answer to it. But it's been very cool. And I also want to give a huge major shout out. Huge thank you to our Patreon members. We have gotten several more. I mean, in the last 48 hours, we've gotten 2 more, which is huge because in the beginning, it was the people who loved me, signed up for
Clients
it.
and friends.
Thank you. I love you too. And that was awesome. And I just kept writing for it, and I thought, man, I don't know how to market this thing because Patreon doesn't seem to market it very well for you. And you have to figure out how to market it. And it wasn't working, which was fine. I kept writing for it because I loved it. And it was basically just a resource for my clients because the people, my family isn't going to read it. And then you started getting, I remember the very first time I got somebody whose name I didn't know sign up to it. And I was like, oh my gosh, This has gotten real. And then you didn't get another one for a couple weeks. And so to get like 2 in one day, that was really, really cool.
Yes.
And
so thank you.
Thank you, because that helps fund these other things. These other missions we're on, these other projects we want to work on. And we've got a really, really big project in the works. And I don't want to talk too much about it because I feel like if I talk too much about it, then I'm going to jinx myself and something's going to happen and it's going to get like super delayed because that's what happens to me. And so I kind of want to keep it under wraps until it's like right there that it just needs like the polish put on it and anybody could do that kind of thing. So if something happened to me or whatever, it could still get out. So I'm keeping wraps on it, but that takes time and resources and focus on that task. And the Patreon has helped afford us to do that. And so you guys, even the audio equipment, when you got 20 special creatures that you take care of, you got to remember most of these things were sick or lame or something. That's where everything goes to. And so other stuff like microphones or a voice recorder is kind of, no, you're lucky you're not just getting the iPhone microphone, right? But because of the Patreon, yeah, sure, okay, let's do this to give you guys a slightly better quality. Granted, it's still on the low end of the, spectrum, but eventually, as the Patreon continues to work, then we could upgrade these things and make it even better for you. And that is because of the Patreon members. And so thank you guys so much.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know how much you mean to both of us, but especially me, since right now I'm doing the majority of the writing for it, though that's about to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I love when you comment on the posts and you tell me about what you found interesting or questions you have, or you've related it to something else in your life so it connects and makes sense. That is just so awesome. Keep doing that. The Patreon's a great place to ask me questions because since social media has gone crazy, it has been hard to keep up with comments on Facebook and especially TikTok. They've gotten neglected, bless their hearts. But on the Patreon, I make an extra special effort to make sure I reply to you guys because you're like my family. So if you have a question, be sure to, whether you direct message me on Patreon or put it in the comments of a post, do it there and I make sure I get back to you to the best of my ability.
Keep making sure you check back with social media so that you know when this big surprise will be unraveled.
Yes.
So just keep looking at Facebook or TikTok or whatever Danielle plans to put it out on for the announcement.
Yes,
so.
It'll be on, I'll be updating on Facebook. I want to say it's going to be soon, but I don't want to say like what soon even means because again, I'll jinx myself. So once I know, then we will, because there's a big learning curve to what it is I'm working on as far as the technical side of it. So, okay, that's been a lot of jibber jabbering. I'm sorry, but we needed to update you. It's been wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
These first several episodes of the podcast have been introductory. So you get to know us because we're putting stuff online and we're saying, hi, we're here. But if you don't know our background, then why would you even care, right? And so I wanted to make sure you got our background. The first 2 episodes were on you, and then the third one was my story. So if you guys haven't watched those or listened to those, you should get caught up. As a side note, this podcast is both on the podcast streaming apps, Spotify, Pandora, etc., but also the video format is on YouTube. And so we have our miniature horses behind us, and sometimes we talk to them or we refer to the creatures behind us. And if you're listening, that could be kind of confusing. But if you're watching, you'd know there's like a herd of 7 adorable miniature horses who are all irritated at the flies because it's June and the flies are bad.
July 4th.
Oh, it's July 4th. The flies are bad, and no amount of fly spray works when you got cattle all around you.
Oh, yeah.
So they're back there. You might even hear them come through in the audio with their displeasure, right, guys? Sorry. So I wanted to let you know that. When we last left off, I had started talking about, in my own story, how I was arguing with Dr. Bowker over my personal pony Beauty's weight because I was dealing with laminitis with her. And he kept telling me that she was too fat. And I kept telling him that he was wrong, that she wasn't as fat as she used to be. And the audacity in me. And until I finally said, okay, fine, and got her to drop a few more pounds, probably honestly out of spite. I wasn't having much success really turning her around like I wanted to. And then I got it done. I got her body conditioned to be what he deems ideal. Last 3 ribs just visible. The rest of the ribs easily felt under the flesh. Good top line, but lean, lean. It was almost like a switch flipped and boom, she was turned around. I mean, it was amazing how well that worked. And so I became a believer in the ideal body weight, but I also learned maybe I shouldn't argue, especially when you're just young 20-something. What do you know? So anyway, we left off with that story to then segue into today's episode theme, which is how we started getting to work with Dr. Robert Bowker and the influence he's had on us, right? Would that be a good kind of description for it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we were thinking back on years, and I think we decided it was around 2008 or 2009 and I had seen Dr. Bowker's work before that and was very interested and extremely interested in getting to know more about him when a clinic came up in South Carolina. And I said, I have to go. It was a 2-day clinic. I got to be a auditor. That's all he had for this 2-day clinic. And it was absolutely mind-blowing. The upper level research, the things he was talking about that I had no clue about was absolutely amazing. And I actually took him aside at one point and asked him a question about Zippy.
Oh,
because we had the one horse on the farm. And at that time, I think we probably had close to 25 horses. We had a lot of horses on this farm. Now we're kind of down to a handleable amount.
20.
Zippy was a halter-bred quarter horse.
Pleasure-bred, Western pleasure-bred.
Pleasure-bred quarter horse. And as a 2-year-old, he was auctioned off. And looking at the pictures of him as a 2-year-old for that auction, he had about the most coffee can looking feet that you'd ever want to see on a young horse. And obviously shod and saddled, he was ready to go, but he was being auctioned off. So that was kind of the first clue.
He was out of he was Zip's golden chip. He was out of the Zip's chocolate chip line. And at the time, Zip's chocolate chip was like winning everything. At the time, Zippy would have been sired. And their babies didn't get auctioned off quite like where Zippy had ended up,
Right, because he then ended up at a facility for like the handicapped. Because he was so quiet, they thought he would be great for walking handicapped people around, because the people that got him from the auction soon noticed that he was lame.
And this is he was at the handicap facility by the time he was 4.
Right. So this is a 4-year-old.
And these are big money horses. Big money.
Right. And so we acquired him before we moved to Tennessee. So that must have been maybe 2004 or so.
Yeah.
Right. She's great with the dates. I am not. We brought Zippy home, and it looked like a founder because his heels were so high, and just the way he stood, it looked like a founder. So I thought, that's easy. We'll fix this one up and, get a good home for him, because he was a beautiful horse, great-minded horse, one of the best-minded horses ever. But that didn't happen. He was a mystery in more than one way. He kept a hole in his soul at the tip of the frog. And the hole would not go away, no matter what we did, no matter what supplements, no matter what kind of trim, because we were experimenting then. That's why we had so many horses. That's why we still have so many horses, because the trim that I might experiment with on a certain horse here that's a founder or a ring bone or a navicular, I'm going to make sure that works before I ever take it to the public. So I really find it very interesting how so many trimmers, farriers don't have horses. And I say to myself, well, who do you practice on? Because it's so important to know that what you're doing works. So supplement-wise, trim-wise, whatever is suggested, these guys are the guinea pigs, and they will let us know if we're succeeding in what we're doing or we're not. And there's no way I'd ever bring something that was just told to me to the general public until we knew that in our herd, it was a successful thing.
Yeah.
So I just want to lay that out.
Oh, I'm a sacrifice. Yes, you are.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Sacrifice to the others. Look, they're leaving. They're like, oh,
they're
man.
leaving. Now they know. Sorry, guys. So I got to discuss Zippy with Dr. Bowker for a minute and a half because he was very busy and there were lots of people there. And I don't think I really explained the situation like I should. Although Dr. Bowker's, thing is get the heels under the foot and bring the toe back. And so because of the hole in the sole, Zippy was way more comfortable with a longer wall. Well, duh, because he had a thrush-eaten frog. He had heels like a coffee can, so they were very contracted. And so the tissue inside the foot was not ready for just being on his heel and being on the sole. That was not working for him. And through trial and error and using boots and all sorts of things, he just got to a very, very bad point. And we did end up, after we moved to Florida, to Tennessee from Florida, we still ended up working with him for several years.
And we had a really good run there where we were riding and having a lot of fun with him. He was so good-minded, she could take him out by himself on the trail and snip things over his head and it'd fall on his head. I mean, you could have probably taken a chainsaw if you wanted to. He was just such a good boy.
He was just a great boy, but it was taking a toll on him. These feet were just not right. And, when you're kind of at a loss, well, I don't like to keep them around to fail. But God always does this thing to me. When you have a failure, he'll send you another one. And he'll say, you didn't get that one right. You're going to work on this one. And so we have like Zippy's sister here at the farm.
Same color, same mind, same build. I don't have her papers, but I would be sure she's got the Zips chocolate chip bloodlines. I would be sure of it.
It's the same body type. I mean, she's just a delight. But the same problem, once we were...
Same feet,
Exactly,
feet.
Same feet,
well,
same problem.
She's got the one coffee can, and then she's got the other one that's low. So she's kind of a mix, but still.
She's a mix, but still. These holes at the tip of her frog that are not comfortable. And we'll get into the story more of how we talked to Dr. Bowker, but we got through to him because we got to send pictures. And so he gave us some tips and tricks. And we are resolving that issue. So I'm happy to say that, thank you, God, you don't have to send me another one.
No more.
But that took a while because not only was it just the hooves, but it was about her insides that we had to fix before we could get a stable hoof even so that it could heal.
Right.
But it's been an interesting journey with our new horse. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just curious. We don't have to talk about it long. So you call it a 2-day clinic. Was it a clinic or was it like a lecture?
More of a lecture.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We did not, there was no live horses. He brought out slide after slide after slide.
Okay.
Of just fascinating things that I was sitting there just...
Right. Yeah, no, because it's on
another level.
You think you're going to a hoof clinic and you're learning about the hoof and the shape and the outside and a little bit about insides, but not you're looking at his microscope slides, like cells and fibers and stuff. And if you're not expecting that, I wasn't expecting it in the beginning.
Right.
Because you're not thinking about it like that. That's not how, when you're taught to trim or you're taught to horse feet, that's not how you're taught to think about it on like the actual microscopic level. How does this tissue actually work? That's not, that's not taught.
That is not taught.
It is crazy. Okay, so do you want to start in on because you are the one who decided. Because we had Clayton, who I talked about in episode 3, and that was
heartbreaking.
And after my mentor got us hooked up with Dr. Bowker, just as far as she took his x-rays and sent them to Bowker, and Bowker sent her response, and she shared that with me, you were like,
we are not doing this again until Dr. Bowker looks at the x-rays.
We hadn't talked to him personally, though, but that was a pretty bold statement.
That's right. And so I had a client whose husband's horse was in truly a bad place. And every time we went to trim for that client, we would see this horse, and he was a mess. He would stand there pointing a foot or pointing the other foot. And this horse was hunted. So she asked me if I would take Blue for rehab. And I said, not until we get x-rays, because I knew how far gone this horse was. We had worked for this woman for years, and I saw this horse deteriorating in front of my eyes every 5 weeks. So I wanted to make sure there was nothing in there that was going to impede what we were doing.
Because he wasn't young. He was 16, 17.
Exactly. So I put my big girl panties on, and I found Dr. Bowker's information to call him. And I just said, I need to do this.
We were out behind the house, and you called, and he answered. He answered his phone. I don't answer. I get too much spam.
I was already thinking, okay, I'm going to talk to a secretary, and I'm going to have to leave a message. And he answered the phone. And so I talked about who I was and what our case was, and that he had looked at x-rays for us through another person. And I did not want to take this case on unless he could at least look at the x-rays. And he said, I could do more than that. If this horse is appropriate for the rehabilitation that I would like him to go through, I will give you a trim prescription so that I can follow the trim and I can help tweak what you're doing. Oh my, this was amazing. We couldn't believe it. His generosity, his willingness to help.
His excitement,
His excitement to help was absolutely phenomenal. Oh, the first thing was, remember he said, okay, when the horse gets there, take off the shoes, but don't touch the feet. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that, because every rehab we had up till then, it was like, you're just chomping at the bit to get things going. And he said he wanted the owner to see just how lame he was without the shoes. And I thought, isn't that a great idea? So we documented. We took photographs with the shoes on and measurements. Dr. Bowker is about measurements.
He says if you don't have measurements, how do you really know if you're getting anything done? And now that's dramatic, but it's so true, because people will let things slide because you're just looking at it and you don't have the measurements. But when you have the measurements, you know if the width is changing, you know if the length is changing. There's undeniable proof that things are changing. It's not just perspective or whatever. Things are changing. And so you have to get measurements. He makes that very, very clear. Not just to send stuff to him, but we should all be taking measurements. And I'm guilty of not doing it enough.
That's right. Oh, absolutely. And so we took off the shoes, took photos and measurements, and then just had to tie our hands behind our backs and said, okay,
good luck,
that's
buddy.
it.
Have a good week.
And he wanted us to start the next week. Give the horse 7 days, just barefooted. And yes, he was very lame. But
it did help the foot adapt.
The transformation just by removing the shoes in a week was amazing. It really was amazing.
And we should say this is 2015. We started this process with Bowker in 2015.
That's right. And so we would basically trim. We would take measurements and pictures, send those to Dr. Bowker, and he would send back a detailed synopsis of what was happening and what he wanted to see us do next. And we trimmed probably 3 times a week at that point. And when we made little tweaks, we would send the picture to him with the measurements, and he would say, you could take 1 millimeter off of this side. And we were like, are you kidding me? It was amazing. It was absolutely mind-boggling. But Blue's hooves are in Dr. Bowker's international lecture series now. That
they show up a lot. They've been in that webinar he did with Wendy Murdoch, the Surefoot Equine Cage during COVID. A lot of different papers, especially online, I'm trying to find references for, because there's a lot of stuff he's told us, and so I could just make videos based on what he's told us, but I feel like I need to make sure I have the references to back it up. So I've been looking up a ton of his papers, and I just keep running into Blue's feet, which is really, really cool.
Which is really
I
cool.
didn't know that.
Yeah, no, that is cool. We did see the Wendy Murdoch thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God!
That's where he called us the very anal lady trimmers.
That's right. That's who we are. Hey.
Because of the photos. He wants a certain kind of photo, and say less. I will provide you that exact photo. Kind of got a reputation for my photos, which I'm very proud of. But you have to have good photos. You're looking at a 2D image trying to tell something about a horse's foot. The photos have got to be spot on,
Yes.
Very passionate about that.
She is very, very anal about the photos, which is great. She's a very good photographer.
Of hooves.
You take very good pictures. But of cars, too.
Wow.
She loves taking pictures of her cars. Unraveling Blue was quite interesting because he had some periods of time where he didn't do as well. And again, we would send a picture of his body to Dr. Bowker, and Dr. Bowker would say he's too fat. And so it's like, okay. So the navicular horses do have to have a limited amount of sugar. We have to remember that if the back of the foot is not functioning properly, then the blood flow in the foot is not functioning properly. The overload of sugar, which can just be our grass, because we've never fed sweet feed or a high sugar feed at all. We even try to keep a low sugar hay available. In a situation of healing, we need to reduce the sugar. Now, when the horse goes back to work and maybe needs more calories and is burning those calories off, well, that could be a different story. So I'm not going to tell everybody never feed something that's a little higher in sugar.
Right, but navicular is a blood flow issue, essentially, and the foot needs a considerable amount of blood flow. I mean, it's this little tiny structure underneath 1,000 pounds. It's resource heavy, and especially when it needs X amount of resources when it's just functional, but when it's needing to heal, that's kind of like when you're in intensive care, your diet needs to be even better. You may need more calories than what you usually need because your body's fighting something off. It's healing. Well, the horse is the same way.
Exactly.
We have to treat them, I don't want to say differently, but the same as we should treat them, just better while they're rehabbing, while they're recovering from what is a major thing, something like navicular.
Right. So in this process, once we figured some things out about Blue, he really started to thrive. And I actually got to ride him and help him relax because, that's one of the things. When a horse goes around in pain and doesn't want to move forward because his feet hurt, you have to retrain that system. And so maybe out in the field, he could move and have fun on his own. But as soon as you got the saddle and bridle out, he was, I don't think I want any part of this because I remember how this felt. He would go around very inverted, very tight in the back, obviously, very tight in the shoulders because he didn't want to land on those sore feet. So through, systematic work with him and helping him to understand that he could relax and he could go forward, he was actually lovely.
Yes.
And the bigger stride he got, I was thinking, oh my gosh, the poor owner, he is not going to be able to ride this. I could barely ride it.
Oh, he would throw you. Oh my gosh, in a good way, but
he just had such a lovely suspended movement to him. It was really phenomenal. When Blue went home, he did go back to the hunt field. Now, in the meantime, his wife, who we were working for, was also really not understanding the diet thing. Although through the years, we had talked about diet and about the horses getting fat. And when the horses got fat, they got sore. And at one point, I remember her having the vet out because the horses got sore in between trims. Wasn't after a trim. It was maybe 4 weeks into the trim. And I get this phone call and she says, oh my, the horses got sore. I had the vet out. And do you know what he said? And I said, no, what did he say? And I'm thinking, after 4 weeks, the guy is still saying, I've got a terrible trim. We have a terrible trim. And she said, he said my horses are fat. And I said, how much did that cost you? A $2,000 vet bill. And I was telling her this every 4 weeks for the amount of a trim price. So I was like, really? He said they were fat. Oh, I've got to get the weight off. And so I thought that fixed it.
It did for a little while.
For a little while, it did. And then
fell off
the rails again. This is while his horse is at our place rehabbing and really doing well. It's the morning of the trim, and we're heading over there. And did I get a call or a text? I can't remember how she let me know. But she said that her veterinarian was going to be at the trim and that we were to follow the veterinarian's guide. So we got a little ambush there, and it was not appreciated. But I will do exactly what the vet says. She's paying him to be there. She's paying me to trim. I will do exactly what the vet says.
If he was real into the hooves, it'd be one thing. But he's on the board that's a proponent of the big leg walking horse stuff. And, if you're watching this podcast or listening to it, we probably have similar opinions on the big leg walking horse stuff. So if you can be okay with that, what do you really know about hooves? Right. But I digress. I didn't say nothing. You didn't hear nothing.
Right. And we even showed him photographs of Blue's feet when he came and Blue's feet when at that point in time. And the difference was huge. And he even said it was huge. Oh, he loved it, but didn't love the way we trimmed. So
it was just leaving it long. Yeah. You just had to leave it long.
Every stroke. Is this good? Is this good? Is this what you want? Is this what you want? I mean, it was pathetic.
We were on our best behavior.
It was absolutely pathetic. And so after that, and when we left, do you remember we hung out in a parking lot and we called Dr. Bowker and said, we were floored. I could not believe what just happened.
If you wanted anybody's opinion on the trim, you should have consulted Dr. Bowker since Blue had made such progress. That's the vet we should be contacting if there was something going on.
If there was something going on.
They were fat, but.
They were fat and sore. And that's her problem. And I think a couple days later, I nicely texted and I said that we would no longer be able to provide service for her. And, I hope everything would go well. So the problem with that was once Blue went home, we were not able to follow up.
And this is really sad because she had found a new barefoot trimmer, a lady, and good. And so what Dr. Bowker had offered and we facilitated with this new trimmer is that when Blue goes home, Dr. Bowker will continue providing his trim prescription services in order to continue following the case. So that's paid for by the owner, and the owner was happy to pay for it. And so essentially, this trimmer is getting free consultation from Dr. Bowker on her trim through Blue. And so that would be incredible because you can continue your education and expand and develop a relationship, pick his brain on things you're struggling with. What a cool opportunity. Mm-hmm. But it didn't seem like she thought so because we were in the group chat or the group email at the time with her. And so we could stay up to date on the case with the pictures and whatever. And she had done pictures one time and they were taken terribly. And she had reference to how pictures needed to be, but it's okay. Not everybody knows how to take pictures initially.
Mm-hmm.
So you go back out and you take them again, and then you send those to Dr. Bowker. I have had my fair share of retakes. So he consulted on that one, and already things had started, not taking the toe back enough, not taking the heels back enough, but that's okay because she is new to this. And I think she sent pictures one more time, and it was more that way, and then they had gone radio silent with Dr. Bowker.
And the last we heard, he was back in shoes and lame again.
Yep.
So very, very sad. So sad because he was doing brilliantly.
They ended up taking him to Rood and Riddle or something, and they did something crazy on him. And at that time, this was like 2 years ago, I think I saw this on Rood and Riddle's page. He was a success. I don't know about now. I had a fellow professional who provides a different kind of service who had continued going out there for something else for a little while, and so she'd report back, and it was very sad. But it's sad for Blue, but it's very sad for Dr. Bowker, but it's almost more sad for the trimmer who wasn't interested in learning more.
Yeah, very sad.
You have to stay open because nobody knows it all. We don't know it all.
No,
have to just stay open and keep moving forward for these horses, and they're kind of like what we were talking about with the social media. You see where there's a stuck spot there with people for some reason, and I don't fully understand why. Why wouldn't you want to know more, especially if it's free? I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my. Absolutely.
So that was an incredible introduction into Bowker, despite it not working out the way you'd had hoped to for anybody. But that was an amazing introduction to Bowker, and we can never be more thankful for the experience that started all this off,
That's right. That's right.
What we should probably hit next is a couple aha moments, a couple things he really changed how we think about that has really affected what we're doing and our philosophy and etc. I think that would probably be, because we could go case by case and be here the rest of the night, and we don't want to be. It needs to be an hour. So we will not do that. We'll just leave it at Blue. Like the first one I think of off the top of my head is the thrush.
Oh, yes.
And
how embarrassing.
Before we even begin, Lindsay Fields of the Study of the Equine Hoof literally just made that post today. And she has a cadaver hoof, and she's showing central sulcus infection thrush. And it is the best video I think I've ever seen on somebody talking about thrush, and you need to go watch it.
Go watch it.
So July 4th is when she would have posted it. Whenever you listen to this, go to that Facebook page, find July 4th, 2025, and go watch that video. I've also shared it on our Primarily Hooves Facebook page, July 4th, 2025. Find the date, watch the video. It's phenomenal. But
yes. And so we took the stance that owners needed to pick and spray their horses' hooves. And we don't recommend anything on the bottom of the horse's hoof that you wouldn't put on the bottom of your foot. So
no formaldehyde-based Blue products.
No formaldehyde-based Blue product. There are many essential oils that are great for horses' hooves. There's apple cider vinegar that's great for horses' hooves. We've gotten rid of thrush in our practice, except for maybe horses who are coming in for rehab that have had dysfunction for a very long time. And in that case, we will use a product called Oxine, which is a chlorine dioxide-based product. It is very similar product to that White Lightning that has a little horsey head on it that is really, really expensive. Oxine is relatively cheap. You can buy a gallon of it. I think it has gone up in price.
Yes, it has. After COVID, because it is also used as a safe cleaning product. You can use it in kitchens, and you can use it in water and whatever. I don't think I would, but you can.
Right.
And so after COVID, like, whew.
Yeah, got pretty expensive. But you half and half it with vinegar, and it creates a gas that permeates through little holes and cracks and crevices. So when you do an Oxine soak, it's really half and half Oxine and vinegar on a cotton ball, and you put it on the bottom of the horse's hoof. You put it in a bag. You tie the bag up so the vapor does not come out, and voila, half hour later, your foot is white. And it's just like cleaning the bathroom. You just get rid of all that dirt and debris, and things look phenomenal. So with our clients, if they had a stubborn case of thrush, or it had been super muddy or something, we would say, pick the feet out. And, but most of them didn't. We had a couple that did.
Oh, yeah. And especially metabolic cases.
Especially the metabolic cases. So we had to go to our clients.
Well, because what did Dr. Bowker say?
Well, Dr. Bowker said that if your clients have thrush, you're not doing your job.
What?
Are you kidding me?
From like Pony Club, from like the time you first see your first Shetland pony, that you have to pick the feet every day or else they'll get thrush. You have to treat the feet every day.
The feet. And so, that was terrible.
And he said, no, you need to leave the dirt plug in as much as you can. You don't need to be picking the feet every day, but then they'll get thrush. No, they won't. Not if you're doing your job right.
So in learning with Blue about how the heels need to work, how the frog needs to work, we were pretty confident in going to our clients and apologizing to every one of them and saying, you know what? Thrush is my problem. It's not your problem. I had one client, Amy. Amy, if you're listening, we love you. But Amy said, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself if I'm not picking feet every day. So she is just a blessing. And she is awesome. We love her. She's just wonderful. But she had to settle down in picking those hooves.
And so why is thrush the farrier's problem or the hoof trimmer's problem?
Because if your farrier or trimmer does not have the back of the foot operating optimally, meaning it's not being filled with blood, the horse is not properly using the back of the foot, then the back of the foot is going to atrophy. And in that atrophy, we are going to start having dead tissue. And thrush is opportunistic.
Yep.
So it will then feed on that dying dead tissue and then really create havoc in your horse's hoof.
I'm not a human doctor. I know nothing about gangrene, so I shouldn't say this, but I do, just for the rest of the people who are also simple-minded like I am. I say thrush is similar to gangrene. Gangrene doesn't typically just plague somebody, like just pick somebody at random. Gangrene sets in when there's been a circulatory issue. So in diabetics, when they lose circulation to a limb, whatever, you start having gangrene issues because it's a byproduct of the already necrotic tissue, and then it is opportunistic, right? And disease sets in. And it might be a totally terrible analogy and medical people can just nail me on it and I can stop using it or I'll continue using it because it's easy for us simple-minded folk. But thrush is the same way. Thrush isn't going to just plague healthy tissue, right? Like people think it does. It doesn't. It wants to feed on what's already diseased. Now, if you've got a lot of dirt in the foot and you haven't picked it in a week and you go to pick it, you might have some surface thrush because thrush is also, I believe it's anaerobic. I'm also not a scientist. I believe it's anaerobic. It's where it doesn't want oxygen. It thrives in an environment of low oxygen. And so when you've got a foot and you've got dirt pressed up against it and it's been a week.
Sole exfoliating, right? Because the tissue does exfoliate.
Right. You're going to have a little bit of external dead tissue that needed to exfoliate, but the dirt's been in there so it can. And you're going to have an area of low oxygen and you're going to get surface thrush. So you pick the foot and it's a little black and stinky. And
then brush it.
You brush it with a wire brush and it's gone.
Right.
That's normal. It's not invasive. It's that when you start getting that invasive, stinky, gooey, soft, invasive thrush, that is your, something's not working well in this foot. It has material, it's got tissue that is diseased enough that is letting thrush set in. That is where your mind needs to go immediately if you run into that. Or if you've got the central sulcus infection filled with the goopy thrush. The thrush, and this is Lindsay's video, you need to watch it. The thrush did not cause the central sulcus infection. I'm seeing gazillions of videos online right now over different central sulcus products. So you can combat that central sulcus thrush and heal that central sulcus. Yes, the thrush is going to make the central sulcus hurt and the horse is not going to want to load the heel like they should, regardless of the trimming, once that thrush is in there. But if you treat that sulcus thrush, you may have a positive change until you stop using the product. And it's going to come back if you haven't fixed hoof balance that's affected load, that's affected tissue development. The thrush did not cause the central sulcus infection. The thrush said, oh, snap, this is a great place to go live and eat. I'm going to do that, but the central sulcus infection or the diseased tissue that led to was already there inviting. It said for rent, for thrush. That is really important and not talked about enough. I'm getting comments on the post about, people who are like, I've started to kind of figure out this whole treat every day thing is not working because the day I have to take off, it's back. And my farrier just says, keep using the thrush buster. You have to use it every day. But it's not fixing it. Well,
and that stuff is caustic.
Yes, we don't like thrush buster, but it's not fixing it because you're just treating the symptom. You're not actually solving the problem. That it's like applying Neosporin to the gangrene leg, that's going to make a difference. It's not. Maybe it'll slow it down slightly, probably not, but it's not going to actually fix what's causing the issue. So that was a really, really big one. And that's been very exciting because now we have
just don't deal with it.
Nobody who has to treat for thrush. Amy still will, and unless
it's usually when something crazy's going on. So if the horses were out on too much spring grass and there's a slight laminitic episode, well, what does that do? That weakens the lamina. That will kill some of the lamina. So if you have that dead tissue, then thrush can invade. And so we call that white line disease, like it's some kind of disease. It's not. It's because this is what happened, and now the thrush is taking hold. So those are some interesting things to wrap your mind around.
I think the other one that was really pretty big for me is the foot being tactile, the foot being able to feel what kind of surface it's on. Dr. Bowker's done venogram studies to study the blood flow in the foot and how that can change based on a lot of different things. But what I'm referring to is what texture the horse is on. So he found the foot is filled with nerves. And if the foot is properly functioning, those nerves innervate the hoof. So the hoof can send a lot of information back to the brain and the body. If the foot's not functioning, it doesn't send very much back. And that's where you run into horses who get heat founder or winter laminitis, or horses whose hooves can wear faster than they grow on long ride. You get a whole lot of stuff, but we're not talking about that right now. So if the foot is working right and you take that horse onto what he calls an uncomfortable surface, which would be hard, flat surface. It could be concrete. It could be even this ground. Really, this is very hard and flat right now. Any kind of surface that you'd sit on and your body would just stay tense. It's just not comfortable. Blood flow's reduced to the hoof by 80%. The hoof does the same thing your butt does. When you sit on a hard surface, it goes, ooh,
You kind of squinch up a little.
You can't get comfortable. Whereas what happens when you sit in your lazy boy?
Right.
You just relax into it. It is it's involuntary. You can't help it, It's hard to relax like that on concrete unless you're really tired. So when you do something as small as put a terry cloth towel underneath that horse's foot, blood flow is restored. He calls it the comfortable surface, the textured surface, something textured like grass, right? Because horses were designed to be in pasture type scenarios. And so that texture of grass is very healing, very comforting to the hoof. It's very stimulating to the hoof. And a lot of times, especially in laminitis, a lot of the pain comes from a swelling inside that capsule because of a blood flow issue.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to understand this, well, then you can leverage it. People will put pads in boots. You have horses who's foundered laminitic, so you put boots on and you put big squishy pads because, the squishy is going to be really good. A lot of times they have thin soles, whatever. And sometimes it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Well, yeah, the squishy is good for the protecting part, but it's not changed the blood flow. It has not helped the blood flow. There's still swelling inside the capsule, and the horse doesn't want to walk, so mechanically they're not helping to move blood. So one of the materials you can use instead of terry cloth is Berber carpet. And so we recommend anybody who uses boots, go to Lowe's, buy a square foot or whatever of some Berber carpet. It's like that thick. It's, you have to look it up online if you don't know what it is. I didn't know what it is. I live in the time of wood floor and whatever. It's not so much carpet now. I had to look it up. I can never spell it right. But get yourself some Berber carpet and cut pads out and put those in the boots. We have had laminitic horses who we've tested, walk them on squishy pads. Not so good. Take the squishy pads, thick squishy pads out, put the thin piece of Berber carpet in, and after a couple steps, because it takes a minute for the foot to go, ooh, okay, They're moving better in the little thin carpet pad than they did in the big, squishy, thick pad. Ideally, especially with something like that, you want them protected. We'll stack if you have space in the boots so they can have the squishy, protective nature along with the stimulatory factor. But it has been phenomenal, and it makes such a big difference because it stimulates the foot to move those fluids, right? And so then the horse feels a little better, then he's more willing to move around, and you increase the rate of healing.
Right.
No matter your need for boots, I always say put carpet in it because even if your horse just needs a little protection from the rocks because you want to go on a ride, he's not conditioned, he's been standing around, let's say a wet, dry lot, whatever, and you're going to take a 20-mile ride on the gravel, use your boots, but put carpet in it so you get the best bang for your buck as far as functional development each step he takes on that ride, you know? Right. Forget the smooth, expensive pads. They're oftentimes so expensive. Go get some carpet from Lowe's. Go see if you've got any friends or family who's pulling carpet out of their house. That happens all the time.
Right.
You can settle for non-Berber if you need to.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
little pile of stuff works good too.
And you think about how many rehab facilities are out there now, and the rage is the track system. The track system with hay. And that's great because a lot of these horses don't need the calories of grass. But what surfaces are they walking on?
Yeah.
Right? They're walking on...
They're never getting grass. They're never walking on grass.
Non-grass surfaces. Hopefully, a lot of those horses are past the points of needing boots. And at that point, yeah, they can deal with whatever. But during that initial phase when things are so important, you know, to have comfort so that the horse does land heel first, is more comfortable, isn't just stabbing the ground, putting the Berber carpet in the boot to help facilitate that. So hopefully this will get out and people will see that.
I think the last thing we'll bring up, and we can't talk about for long, so we're going to kind of leave them on a cliffhanger.
Ooh, I love it.
Because I don't have a hoof model, and I don't want to go into it, but I think because it was big, the last thing I want to mention is because heel height is all the rage. Heel's too low, heel's too high, horse needs more heel. I mean, the list goes on as far as like what's really affected what we do and how we think. But I think the last one worth mentioning, because we are out of time now, is that the heel height is built by soft tissue.
Right.
If you have, it doesn't matter what you have really, but if you have, let's say, a low underrun heel and you need more heel height on that horse, nothing you do is going to permanently fix it, kind of like your thrush issue, if you've not built soft tissue, because it's that soft tissue depth that supports the heel tubules. It's that depth of that digital cushion of that frog that supports the bone and protects you from navicular. That's the big one with him and his navicular horses.
Yep.
Is that navicular is a soft tissue issue that leads to an angle issue that leads to a navicular bone DDFT issue. But that's not how it started. It started as a soft tissue issue. That soft tissue that should be holding that bone up. And that soft tissue that's holding that bone up to allow those heels to have support so those tubules can grow straight. Everything's working good. When they stop using the back of their foot and those tissues, they are reactive to stimulation. They're like a muscle even though they're not. If you don't use it, you lose it because of trimming and shoeing practices. Feet run forward. We no longer encourage loading on the back of their foot. Starts to thin. Now the frog's not touching the ground. The heels are doing all the work. If hoof wall was strong enough to support a horse, we'd never see a collapsed run forward heel. We lose what was holding the bone up. Everything starts to sag. Rub, you have this mess. If you want to fix that low heel, you have got to stimulate and build that soft tissue. It cures your navicular. It holds your heels, tubules upright, because the whole system has to work together. No one part can do it all. It's not strong enough. And if it could, we wouldn't have any of these problems. So we need hoof models and stuff to really look at that.
And we will.
This is part of also our big project we're working on, but that was huge because the importance of the digital cushion. The digital cushion has 100,000 more purposes and jobs, and yet because this is what we run into so much in domesticated horses is what we call caudal failure, not enough digital cushion frog development, and then the whole system falls in on itself. The whole circulatory, supportive, the whole system. I wanted to bring that up because it is so important and leave you guys wanting more, hopefully, if I did my job right. But that is all the time we have for today. We do have to wrap it up, unfortunately. The sun is setting. It's late. Hopefully the lighting hasn't gotten too bad. If it has, we're not a $1 million production yet. What can I say? Keep liking and following and signing up for the Patreon. Maybe we could be and have good lighting. Whatever. That's not what's important here. It's the content that's important. This has been yet again another fun episode. Now,
absolutely.
We were going to call it the introductory stuff at 4 episodes, but you had a really good idea a week or two ago. And you had said, do we explain to them our name? Right?
Oh,
Primarily Hooves.
I think that would be smart.
So I think we're going to round it out an even 5, whatever.
Even 5.
And the 5th episode is going to be on the origin of our name, why we call ourselves Primarily Hooves. And you may already have kind of half an idea, but I think that would be a really good wrap up too. And we will talk about more that we've learned from Dr. Bowker and get into specific topics and interviews then after episode 5. So I guess next episode will probably be the final call, but it's almost final call for any questions or topic ideas. I'm getting some good ones off Facebook. So if you have anything in specific you'd like to see us talk about, then don't hesitate to put that into the comments at some point. If you're interested in being interviewed, I'd love to get to know you and see if you'd be a fit for the podcast. So don't hesitate to reach out. I've got some people in mind, but, I'll start putting that kind of stuff out there as we continue to build this and go. I hope you guys really enjoyed, and I just want to give another shout out, thank you to our Patreon members. You can find the link to our Patreon website, all of our social medias in the description below the video. And if you're on the podcast app, I'm sure it's in some kind of description, or just go find us on Facebook at Primarily Hooves. And then from the Facebook, you can find the link that's going to take you to all of our other links. It's a Linktree link, which just means it's one link that's going to take you to all of our other links to make life easy.
Nice.
And you'll find everything there. So if you want to be a member of the Patreon or you want to follow our social medias, go check out the link in the description of this video or the bio of our Facebook, and it will get you there. Again, thank you to our Patreon members. You guys are awesome, and I'm so excited about being able to put out stuff for you guys faster because having you work on stuff, and we finished filming a behind the scenes of Dixie Boy because he's going to have his 31st birthday July 10th. He was in episode 2. We decided the behind the scenes was going to be all about him today because that behind the scenes will be out this week, which should be his birthday week or close enough to it. And so that was a lot of fun getting to really spend the day with him. We had things we had to do with him anyway, but he got to be on camera and he's a ham. So I'm sure he enjoyed it very much. Got lots of cookies, and that's all that matters when you're 31 and have no teeth is how many cookies you get. Especially when you used to be so metabolic, you weren't allowed to have any sugar, but now you're better, and also you're super old and you have no teeth left, and now you can have life got way easier for him.
Now you just have grass juice.
Oh, he's loving it. Oh, man. All right.
Well, thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you on the next podcast.
Bye.
Bye.